roll call.
John Hutzko.
Russ Smith. Michael O'Brien.
Lori G.
Bob Wilbar.
Jason Faraschino.
And if everyone would join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and Happy New Year, everybody. We have two upcoming meeting dates, one on February 5th and one on February 19th. And we have one set of meeting minutes, and Pam, I apologize, I'm going to hold these over until our February 5th meeting. I just haven't had a chance to go through them yet. If that's all right. So the first item on our agenda is an extension of final approval for the Fian 4-lot subdivision on Stormville Mountain. Excuse me, on Stormville Mountain Road.
Good evening. We're stuck at Board of Health, and there's no immediate rush on their points, so if we could, we'd like to go for an extension.
And the, are you requesting a 6-month, 1 year?
Give me a year if we come in earlier. Would that be all right?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Mark? Okay, do I have a motion to extend the fee and final approval for 1 year?
So
So,
moved.
second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I didn't realize that.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a decision for the Melly lot line realignment. We've received a letter in our packages tonight letting us know that, and Michelle, I think we haven't received the formal written response yet from the DEC, so we don't have any new information from our last meeting. What I would like to do is we'll put this on our next agenda, but we won't leave it on the agenda if we don't have the information in at the time we're finalizing the agenda, so we don't keep having this and kind of bumping it forward. We'll just, as soon as we have the information, we'll put it on the next available agenda if that's agreeable to the board.
And what is the information that is still outstanding?
The DEC needs to finalize the requirements they're going to have for the wetlands, buffering with the turtles and the...
Okay, and that, this last I knew was just applied and...
It was submitted the day of your last meeting to
Right.
DEC,
Right.
so they haven't finished their review of it.
Right.
So, okay, so,
But when it comes back, whatever the DEC requires may need changes to the plan. If it doesn't need changes to the plan, we still have to finalize our neg deck and all of that too.
okay, I guess, yeah, it's just, there's nothing else then for now, that's it.
Not that I'm aware, I guess I'm looking at Michelle, Brandon, Joe, anything else?
Okay.
Okay. That's not to say when they come in, if they have other conditions or something, it might not trigger something, but that's
Okay.
not what's expected right now. Okay, so the, everyone's all right, we'll move this to the next agenda as soon as we have a submission from the applicant, and we know we have the information to review. So the next item on our agenda is an adjourned public hearing for Sprainbrook Meadows, 9-lot subdivision on Townsend Road. And do I have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mark Day, Day Engineering, Dennis Lynch, representing Springbrook Meadows. Last time we were here, we really haven't modified the plan too much. We've made some changes based on the comments that we've got from the consultants. For example, we had some shared driveways. We've now taken those apart, if you will. There was a retention basin here. We've removed it. That was feeding into the adjacent. What we're going to do now is come up with individual infiltrators for the individual stormwater for the homes.
And Mark, I know this is an adjourned public hearing, so
Oh,
do you
sorry.
either have the picture to put up on the board?
Yeah,
or
it's-
turn this? I just want to make sure the public can see the plan.
It's actually that view right there.
That would be a rare sight in East Fishkill.
Soon, global warming.
It's actually Red Wings.
What's that?
Red Wing Park.
Oh,
Right,
there you
that's
go.
it.
I don't know about the palm trees, but
Give us a few years.
Just bear with us for a moment, folks. We'll have the plan up on the screen shortly.
Mark,
Yes.
I know on Townsend Road that there's bumps and bales and the way the water runs and all kinds of weird ways. Does it does it tend to run onto the site, off the site, down the road right now?
Well, this was the old floodplain line.
Yeah.
The new one's over here. The basic one, if you look on the new flood mapping, if you will, that was done May of last year, actually takes it over Townsend Road. We looked at it, you know, Joe and I have been talking about it. I'll be honest with you, it's not even close, it's way off. Because you would need, I mean, it has this area here, we're approximately 20 feet above this grade, and honestly, if this is underwater, which it portrays in that, we should be looking for scuba gear.
I'm sorry, I just thought I had to
This
ask.
is, we're now coming up with a way to resolve this issue.
So is it a lumber letter, or what do you?
Well, honestly, I don't know how you handle it with FEMA. This is totally erroneous. There is absolutely no way scientifically that the drainage area could create enough water to create the floodplain that they project onto this site.
Although the other side of the road is, I mean, there's parts of it that are just completely
Oh, it's
wet. It's
Yeah, no,
water.
I agree with you, but this area here,
Right.
this is a knob.
That's not a mud, you're right.
Right, and it's
The floodplain is all on the other side of the road.
way over here now. It actually
Well, no,
moves.
it covers this area though,
Right.
right? It's
Right.
not that it's over on the other side of the road, it covers the entire.
Yeah, it actually, this line has moved from here over to here. So but what we're probably gonna wind up doing, as I talked to Joe earlier today, we're more than likely gonna do a very detailed analysis of the two streams that feed this and come up with what we're gonna do, our own cross sections and determine what it is.
I was just curious, do you have any folk,
Just hold your question for a second, Mark, if you don't mind, now that we've got the
Yep.
plan there, just give us the quick overview
Sure.
again.
Thank you. The parcel is actually on, this is Townsend Road right here. And this is there any way to pan that out? We're only showing a piece of it. We're showing approximately, there's 7 lots in this segment here, this cluster, and there's 2 lots right up in here. What I was talking about before, this was the old floodplain before May of this past year. Right now, it's actually showing way over here, which this area in here is it's a ridge, if you will. It's a ridge of gravel. There's actually a ridge up in here. This floodplain kind of corresponds to right about the way we show it right in this line here. That stayed the same roughly. But right now, the new FEMA study shows this being completely underwater, which there's not enough water to do that. And it would create a lot of other problems elsewhere.
And
So
Mark, what about the road itself? Does the road have the same elevation as your site, or is the road below you?
the road's actually lower than we are. It's lower than this segment right here.
Can the
does the
water
road
ever be
flood in this
completely around that?
I don't see how.
theoretically?
I'm just asking, I'm just wondering if that's why they're showing it like
You know,
that.
if we get the big one, I would think, we'd all be, but
We wouldn't be worrying about this part.
right, that's what I'm saying. I mean, the floodplain now shows the line covering this much of Townsend Road. Now, I've spoke to my client who lives right in this area. He does not remember that being flooded through Irene. He thought
I
that
don't
there
remember
was
that area
some,
being flooded either.
he thought there was a part up here that
No,
there
there were
was
chunks
some
of
water.
flooding along Townsend.
But he does not remember this coming across. Now, I understand what they're doing. They're using, the drainage area for this is, it's this stream here, and it's also this stream here. And the drainage area here is fairly large. I mean, it's a big drainage area. If you use a formula which FEMA uses called regression, they basically take that area, they apply let's just talk impervious number to it, a coefficient, if you will, and they route it through the storm. They come up with a huge number. And the number is very conservative. And what it's done here is it's created a large change in what used to be the floodplain. So what I think we're going to wind up doing, we're going to have some further discussion on it, we're going to wind up doing a detailed analysis where we will actually do cross-sections through this based on a flow that we calculate from upstream. We'll route the upper reaches of the watershed through the certain impoundments and through culverts and what have you, to come up with a value here and probably a value in this area, and we'll route that stream down through this corridor and actually figure out what the actual number should be, which is something I don't think FEMA did here. They did not come up with a base flood elevation. We did a lot of work after Irene with the floodplain, or looking at properties that had been damaged by flood. And I noticed that they were doing a lot of knee-jerk, and this to me looks like a knee-jerk reaction to something that I think they just wanted a response, and this is what they're giving us. So we're going to try to do a LOMA, or whatever we have to do to try to revise it. So that's probably the biggest outstanding issue of this project.
I was just going to ask Joe,
Yeah.
you want to weigh in and just give us your thoughts on this?
Well, Mark is correct. I mean, the floodplain the previous time was a lot different. It was much further away from the road. The problem now is, though, these are the maps that we have to work with that FEMA's issued, the town's adopted into their code. So we're going to need to do the type of analysis that Mark mentioned to basically show a new line that takes into consideration what Mark has talked about. You basically have to go through the steps in the code and prove the mapping to look the way that you think is accurate based on the model that he's going to put together. There are a number of streams that course through the property, so that's going to be a little bit complicated to route all those different sections of stream and come up with some realistic numbers. And he does have some topography to work with out there, and there are some reports about, you know, how the road hasn't really flooded, and we'll take some of that information into consideration as well. But
You
it
didn't
is,
have to take
yeah.
pictures of the road with this area, did you? Or
No,
outside of this
no,
one?
actually we did.
Does that information get sent to FEMA?
Excuse me.
Will that,
Yeah,
your analysis
it
get
would
sent to
have
FEMA?
be. It would have to be. They'd have to
Yes.
file what they call a
Yeah.
letter of map
Remember.
amendment or a
Yeah.
letter of map revision. That way that, otherwise these properties would always be affected by
Right,
that.
yeah.
So it's something we're going to wind up doing.
Mark, what's the, it sounds like that's an awful lot of work. What's the timing on being able to do something like that and getting an analysis done?
We were talking about it today to do it. It's a full month of work. I mean, it's quite a bit of work because you're actually looking at each impoundment area along each stream, and you're calculating, you're basically routing that watershed down through incremental sections, sub-watersheds, if you will, until you get to a certain point, and then you combine those hydrographs and you come up with a flow value, and you analyze it looking at very long and wide cross-sections. And our biggest hurdle is going to be the topo we have, because you can see the stream's over here, but the floodplain's over here, so you're dealing with very, very wide cross-sections. So we may not have all the topography we need. We may have to interpolate between what we have and what USGS. We're thinking it's probably for us a month and probably another couple of weeks to refine it. And we'd like to work with Joe and Scott's office to make sure that we're all feeling like we're going down the right path with it.
Do you need approval from FEMA once you get done, and where they say they agree?
Yeah, I don't know how long that takes.
Neither do I, that's what I was gonna ask you next.
Well, I did one years ago for Covered Bridge, when we did Grants Farm, which is now Covered Bridge Farm. When the actual Covered Bridge went in, we did an analysis to prove that that was not in the floodplain, or there was enough of a bridge opening to create that bridge and not have a problem. But that took FEMA about 2 weeks to review and approve.
So it's a
Tom, I
couple,
know right now we're talking about the
couple months.
Here.
property, the property itself and the elevation of the property itself, establishing the VFE, and where does the property fall in it? What should the conversation be about the road itself? What if we end up establishing, because it sounds like your property is higher than the road, what if the VFE is somewhere between the high point of the property and the road.
Well, I mean, that's something that once they have the elevations, they're gonna have to look at this stormwater discharge and everything and see what
And how
can
it's
be
gonna
done.
impact. Okay.
Because most of the stormwater is not under your control.
Correct. Right, none of it is actually.
Well,
None of it.
none of it, yes.
Our initial look at this, we think one of the things that they did using regression, if you have a small watershed here and it comes down through this stream and hits this point, long before this one does, this is through the system before, this stream would actually hit its peak long before the peak would hit here. So it's my contention that this road does not overtop. There's a fairly large culvert here, so, you know, I don't think you have an overtopping problem. If it is, it's minor.
Okay.
So,
Well, just, you know, I'd like to understand that once you do the analysis. I know we don't
do it
know.
with us, it's a lot of fun.
Mark, when you were here in October, you were talking about the ponds and replacing those. You're talking about a series of rain gardens?
Yeah, basically rain gardens, you know, subsurface. That way you're picking up the rooftops. Any of the impervious impacts that we were getting because of a home or a driveway, instead of routing it to one spot on a site, for this it doesn't really work because it's fairly flat on the road. It's easier to actually get it right at the source, which is the rooftop and the driveway. And we think it's better. And the DEC, we've been in discussion with them, I know you're aware of, their concern was the original basin we had here was discharging into the adjacent area and thus into the wetland. We talked to Janet Swentuski, and she thought this was a much better option for us to do with below grade,
So there'll be no attempt to keep any of the water out, so just right out.
Right, and the soil here is very, very well graded gravel, so we should be okay with that.
Other questions or comments from board members?
Yeah, would you ever hear back from the DEC on the habitat studies?
On the which, I'm sorry?
The habitat studies.
Oh, there's none out there. There was one submitted, Mike Nowicki had submitted one. I don't know that they ever respond to it though, or I've never,
And back as far as my note shows, as far as June, we're still waiting for something.
yeah, I don't know that they're gonna respond. They don't typically respond that I'm aware of, because we're not asking for a permit in this case. I can reach out and see if we can get something, but they generally rely on their biologists.
Michelle, have you talked to them about this one?
Not recently on this one. The last letter we had, they expressed concern about a number of things, and I think the biggest issue for me on this particular site was just that it was in close proximity to Jackson Corners, where there are a lot of DEC issues. So it just would be, if you could just contact them, make sure you close all the loops of that, because what happened on Jackson Corners was they started construction and then they came in, or they wanted to get, I think, a water line permit, and there was major issues with that. So you may want to just make sure that they were, you should get in writing from them that they've accepted the habitat assessment and don't have any issues with it. And they'll do that for you. They can sometimes just send an email to me.
Okay.
I will also call
Okay.
on your behalf.
Thanks, Michelle. Any other questions or comments from board members? Joel, Michelle, anything else we should go over before we open up for public comment?
Yeah, I guess one last thing on the floodplain. I did make a copy of the updated local law, and I also have a FEMA contact if your office wants either of these.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here from the public to speak for or against the Springbrook Meadows 9-lot subdivision on Townsend Road? I would have you come on up. We've got a clipboard you can sign in. Okay, so Mark, you're saying, come on back. You're saying it sounds like at least 6 weeks, right, before you think you'd have
The BFE, yeah.
the BFE?
I don't know how long it takes, to be honest with you, to get it through FEMA. But if, is that something the board's gonna look for, or is it something I guess.
Yeah, I think we have to.
Yeah.
Also,
You're at a floodplain right now, so
I mean,
if you
we'll-
don't have that, I'm sorry.
We'll be reviewing it in conjunction and probably before it goes to FEMA as well, so we can, bounce off the review and make sure it's a tight submission.
Nothing happens with the government shorter than
Right.
6 months.
Although they also hire out consultants to review this on their behalf sometimes, and that.
Well, I'm not sure we have to wait till you hear back from FEMA, but I would want to know, we need to know what the analysis is and what the recommendation, the request is. you know, I think.
Well,
Won't
if
Joe
we
know
don't
that?
know, if it's in the floodplain, then they'll need a floodplain permit.
Right.
So they really need the determination from FEMA that they're out before you can conclude the proceedings.
I'm not suggesting concluding, I'm just saying before they come back and give us an update. Let us know what's going on.
That's true, yeah.
What we'd like to do is finalize with the Board of Health, if it's okay with the board. I mean, we're doing it at our own risk. But we strongly believe that this is above the floodplain.
We just would have to strongly say that's definitely at your own
Oh,
risk,
we
because
understand.
as of right now,
We understand.
okay. So, Mark, we have March 19th. It's about 8 weeks. The meeting before that, March 5th.
You know what, let's, if it's okay, can we set it for the 19th? And if I have to move it, we'll know soon enough if we have to move it. We'll be working with Joe's office.
Okay. If you have to move it, we would leave it on the March 19th agenda and just put a note on notation that it will be further adjourned because it's not
Okay.
complete. I mean, I'm assuming the analysis at least is done, you could give us the update to say this is what we've requested, even if FEMA hasn't approved it yet. So we
Right,
kind of
yeah.
know the direction you're moving at that point.
Yep.
Okay. Any other final questions or comments?
One final question. If Mark puts the study together, Joe agrees, the study's right, and the application's sent to FEMA, I understand we could grant a floodplain permit without FEMA changing the maps. Is that correct, or am I screwed up?
Well, I would never say you're screwed up.
Oh, sure you would. You're right most of the time.
But no, I don't think you could go, it's either one or the other, and we're obligated under federal law to follow the FEMA maps, so until Mark can get a letter from them saying, no, this is the true boundary, they're not in it. they really
That's what I was wondering, if there was a
can't.
back door. Thank you.
If there's a back door, I'd have found it.
Okay. So do I have a motion to adjourn the Springbrook Meadows public hearing to March 19th?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Paline site plan, Ryan Drive, adjourned public hearing. Do I have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, Paul Gigliotti from PRG Engineering. We also have Tim Allen here from Big O Associates. Just to get us up to speed on the project, this is the Paline site plan. We're proposing a contractor's equipment storage yard / contractor supply yard. Previously at the December 4th meeting, you guys asked for a list of some equipment, materials, some operating hours which were submitted. I don't know if you guys reviewed that or not. We also been to the ARB last week. They did give us preliminary approval for the buildings. We also been dealing with Marie from the health department. We have approval to drill the well where it's located. She has reviewed the septic system. We're pretty much in accordance with everything. We're just waiting on preliminary approval so she can finish her approvals.
Okay, and these drawings here are what you presented to the ARB?
Yes, this is the new style building. We had the metal building originally and realized we don't accept that anymore, so we changed it to like a board and batten vinyl siding with some rock.
Do you have both, is this both buildings? It looks like
Yeah,
just the
well,
front.
this is the front, this is the back side, facing towards the storage. This is the big 8,000 square foot building. This is the side where the garage door. And I do have just a picture of the garage in the back. It's pretty much the same style siding.
And these colors are
Yeah,
what you
this is the
presented
garage
as?
in the back. Yeah, it's like a reddish color, which is gray. It's like it's called Chardonnay. It has like a tan, a little red, matching white trim.
Okay, if you could just turn that so the audience can see that as well, since we're in a public hearing. The ARB review of these buildings is also part of our public hearing, so. Thank you. Any changes to the plan since the last time we saw it?
Just some of the comments you guys had. We moved the one entrance down. Tough to see, it's a little small up there. So we're
Yeah,
straight
can you
across
enlarge
from.
that just a little bit?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's 20.
Can you just, If you just close that menu out on the side, it should fit. Thank you.
Maybe try 65.
Okay.
50. 50. There you go.
Good. Thank you. That's good. Yeah, you're good there.
Yeah, you see we moved that one driveway there down, so we're across from the existing driveway across the street. You know, and that also helps us so we don't have to get Central Hudson involved to move all the poles and stuff on where the driveway was originally.
Lori?
Uh,
Who's this?
Oh, sure, yeah. Thank you.
This is the driveway I'm talking about here. We moved it down a little bit, so we're straight across now from an entrance. Pretty much the lighting you see down here, we have the lighting, you have some exterior lighting on this building, the garage, you can't see it because it's right here. We have 2 lights here. We have 1, 2, 3 parking lot lights. We're not going to be open in the evening, so I know you were concerned. None of these leave the property at all. They're going to be on timers, and probably the last employee out is going to be in charge of turning the lights off, so you're not going to have any lights shining out. I know that's a
And
concern.
they're cut off, full cut off,
Yeah, they'll be
shielded.
cut off at night, so. Besides that, no, I mean, there really wasn't any changes. I mean, there was some changes, you know, to the drainage and the SWIP, which Tim, you know, will talk to you guys about. But as for the site itself, you know, everything pretty much stayed the same. When we staggered the trees like you wanted in here, we staggered those. We added, there's a lot of existing trees already here that probably will be able to stay. We just added some new ones in here, you know, and we'll just spot them in there in between the existing trees for some more buffer.
So on the side that would face the residential site where you staggered the trees, there's also a fence there, correct?
Yes, you have a vinyl fence that goes from here
Okay.
all the way down to here. And you have all the pine trees behind it. You know, this is all going to be grass and landscaped in here. And then, you know, like over here, this is where that other, the bins with the wall and the fence that we've talked about start here and go all the way down, which is nowhere near the residence. The residence is up here where there's going to be no material storage or equipment storage. You're just going to be looking at, you know, the landscaping and the building. You'll see there.
And as far as hours of operation and machinery and things like that, just give us a feel for that so the folks from the public who may not have had a chance to see
Yeah,
these.
basically we just went based on the zoning ordinance, like Monday through Friday, it'll be 7 to 7, we'll be within those hours. And Saturdays, I think they're 9 to 5, we'll be somewhere between those hours. Equipment, you know, as a list, it's pretty much any piece of a heavy construction equipment. It could be a backhoe, an excavator, a dozer, a truck, you know, et cetera, any type of equipment. As for material, you know, you have some material, and even the equipment, some will be indoors, some will be outdoors in the garage, some will be outside, some will move in daily, some might be there for, you know, a couple of days, it depends. As material, we're gonna be selling, you know, more like granite, stone wall stone, you know, inside you might have, you know, some cement bags you could buy, tools, you know, maybe a grass seed you could buy, you know, any type of construction materials.
Okay. Screening, anything that's going to generate dust, anything we need to,
No, we're gonna have no crushing on site. As for screening, the company does not own a screener. That's something they may do maybe once a year, where they rent it, it comes in for a day, but that's not something we're really concerned about now. You know, I don't want to hold the project up with that or anything, so I know that might be a concern, but that's something when we're ready, when we're full operational, if we have a pile of material that has to be screened a little bit finer, we like to maybe come before the town and get like a permit for the day, just to bring one in for the day and talk to them about that. Just for the day to screen, we have to do the screen relief for the day. But it's not going to be a full-fledged screening
it's
operation.
not something we typically do
No.
in this area.
Like I
So just
said,
so you know that you would have to come back in and have a
Yes.
conversation with the town.
Like I
I'm
said,
not sure that
it's
that's.
more of like a one-day thing that we come in for a day and that's it.
Any other equipment that's unusual in noise or any other material storage on site? Nothing hazardous, nothing volatile,
No,
nothing?
nothing.
Okay, so just kind of the standard
The standard
landscaping
construction,
type?
yes, construction,
wall
you know, road construction
construction,
equipment.
There were some comments were lighting. There was discussion about the fact they would not be on all night, but how much spill was still, I think, in my notes, was still an issue.
What was that? I'm sorry, say that
How
again.
much light would spill off the site?
Nothing, you can see right here. Here's, you have 1, 2, 3. That's just like your parking lot lights, just like a decorative lamp post. Doesn't
Okay.
leave the property at all.
Okay.
You have some floodlights that would be on the, you see right here, you see this little circle? That's your, your floodlights on the building, does not leave it. Same thing with the building, they're right here in the front. There's 2 little spotlights here. And like I said, once the hours of operations are over, they're gonna be turned off at night.
So they're either on timers or they're motion sensor or something like that?
Yeah, or they'll be just turned off and the last employee leaves.
And this one is a real question. The materials that came out in the interim all said that you were observing the special conditions for a septic tank and a Superfund site. What are those? What do you do? What's the difference with a septic when it's in a Superfund site?
Well, on this site, there is no restrictions. You can put, this site here, we've talked to Lorenzo, which we said already with the EPA, and there is no restrictions on this site. We've actually, I've been talking to Marie, and you see we've designed the septic, and here's our well. We already have approval to drill this well. Basically, she gave us some testing parameters.
So there are no
No,
restrictions?
none,
Okay.
none.
The last item was, it was just a minor point. Somebody said, are you going to be storing much gasoline or gas on the site? And the answer was you weren't sure.
Yeah, well, if you read in, I put it in that review sheet with the equipment list. We're gonna have one, you don't see here, but in one, right, in this building or this building, we're just gonna have like a 550 diesel fuel tank for the equipment. In one of those bins.
Thank you. I missed that one.
Michelle, just coming back to the lighting plan, any concern with the lighting plan as presented, or haven't we had a chance to review it yet?
No, I actually did, and I think they've addressed the issues. I mean, mainly we were concerned about certainly lighting being near the wetland during any time, but if they turn the lighting off and or if it's on motion sensor only, that pretty much takes care of those issues. The floodlights can be obtrusive if they shine into a neighbor's yard, so as long as we know that they're coming off or they're not going to be on constantly, that's helpful. And the hours of operation are such that it's going to close down typically before nightfall during most of the year, except for maybe the winter time. And then
Well, and 7 o'clock at night's not very late, it's
right.
not like it's a 9 or 10.
Right. And then as far as the remaining lamp posts, it's actually very low light levels, 0.5. I think this is foot candles. And that's a pretty low lighting level. And it's not extending beyond the property boundaries. And I think there's only 4 of those, or actually 6 of those.
What's that, the light post?
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yeah, there's only 3 of the.
And those are floodlights. Okay. And it was a decorative lamp post, right? You were doing-
Yeah, like a decorative.
And you moved, just coming back to the driveway, I know we had talked about there might be an issue with a power pole.
Yeah, that
You
was.
didn't have to move, you've moved the driveway now?
Yeah, we just moved it down. We weren't sure if we could move it down with the building, where it was, but actually it worked fine. So we just moved it down to the next driveway.
Okay, so you are across from a driveway
Yeah.
and then, okay.
Laura, I do have one minor comment on that.
Sure.
That since the driveway, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the driveway on the opposite side of Ryan Drive
This
is
one?
a single lane driveway, so it's a one-way driveway. And really, the only concern would be, cars trying to exit at the same time. So my suggestion would be that you align the proposed driveway, the exit side of the proposed driveway, directly across from the driveway on the opposite side. So it shifts back to the west just a little bit.
I was gonna say, just
Right now, you
shift
have,
it,
it's like you have it
center. You want to shift it over a little bit, so
So
this
the
exit
exit
is
side
right
of
here.
the driveway is directly across from the existing driveway, since it's only a one lane, or, one directional driveway. It's only 12 feet wide. And you'd be concerned with the cars coming out opposite each other. And it wouldn't be offset each other.
Anything else with regard to the site circulation or the site distances of the driveways, anything we should?
I think the only thing that we still had open was there's still a couple little issues with the truck turning templates. And it just needs to be refined a little bit. And it's a scaling thing in combination with the template being maybe slightly not updated. There's for WB 62, the current edition of AASHTO, there's a new diagram for that. It doesn't change a lot, like, I think a half a foot in length in a couple of spots. But if you have this drawn to scale, when I put a scale line, the truck itself is not the right size. It's like, it actually looks like it's 14 feet wide to me.
Okay.
If you actually look at the path when you come off of 82 onto Ryan Drive, if you look at that path in relation to, traffic driving to the west, you're not leaving enough room for a car on Ryan Drive from 82 all the way to the entrance, which I believe you can rectify because.
Yeah, I'll look at the scale. Yeah, I'll try to refine it, let me see if we can move it. I do know there's tractor trailers going out there all the time, so I should be able to fit it in there.
Yeah, exactly. I think you should be able to come around 82, and the truck should be able to get in position to enter the driveway entirely on its correct side of the road.
Yeah.
It's just not drawn in that way.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the scale of the truck is right.
Okay. Yeah, look at that.
Michelle, anything else from your perspective?
The only other issue is, I did get a verbal from DEC saying that there were no roost trees and they weren't concerned about turtle habitat. From the initial look at the habitat assessment, she was supposed to have provided some sort of tree clearing restriction. That's what she thought she was gonna ask for, some sort of restriction on when the time of year they could clear the trees. I still haven't gotten that in writing.
Okay.
And I will call and talk to her about that as well.
Yeah, we need that. Okay. Joe, anything else from you?
Yeah, some of the, we'll get into the stormwater in a moment, but I think some of the fence and the wall details could still be clarified. There's some notes showing the vinyl fence in the front would be 6 feet, and then the combination block wall fence toward the rear, the storage bin area, is 4 feet high, and then a 4-foot fence on top of that. So we were asking for like a combination detail for that wall fence, just to be shown.
Actually, in that detail, I can see it's on the house
Okay.
right there.
Mhm.
And that's what the area is, that's what she was looking at.
Yeah, okay, all right.
And you want to talk a little bit about the SWIP now, or you?
I'll just go through this SWIP real quick. We've spoke with Morse Associates yesterday, and basically we're in concurrence with the memo. There were a few items that we wanted to work out, which I think verbally we've worked out, and we'll certainly address all the comments as presented. Stormwater itself handles the driveway and the new impervious surface of the building here, the new building here. It's infiltrated through the site in a central infiltration system proposed on the interior of the property. The soils have been tested, highly permeable, no problem in terms of getting this water in the ground. That water is then ultimately discharged down to here to a design point, which is down at the bottom of the property and through the property. Higher storms will come through. This is part of a larger 300-acre system that drains to a culvert, which is down on 82, down here somewhere, which we've analyzed. That's part of Mr. Dennis's questions in terms of the overall drainage area. We've looked at that, and there'll be no impact to that culvert immediately downstream. As a matter of fact, this site, as the previous applicant had said, probably wants to drain through quicker, as the peak storm will come through a lot later than through that storm. So in terms of the overall stormwater, our approach, I believe, is correct in terms of the DEC. We have some work to do in terms of the memo, but I think we're in pretty good shape and nothing we can't overcome.
Joe, any concern or any issue with?
I guess one of the items we talked about was within the manual itself, it does describe the kind of analysis where you look at downstream and you have to do some comparison pre and post, and as long as they follow the steps that are already in the design manual and show that that's what their intent seems to be, we'll review that and we'll review the other comments. It does seem like they have good soils out there, so they've got that working in their favor.
You're not seeing anything now that would cause a major change to the way the drainage is being drawn? I know we don't have the full analysis yet.
Yeah,
but there's nothing.
no,
Because I know we're kind of near a wetland, that's why I'm asking, is there anything else we should be doing here, or anything we should be thinking of now?
No, the only other thing we touched on in a conversation yesterday was adjusting the grading somewhat to maybe add a catch basin to receive some more flow that would go into those galleys, but it wouldn't be a major change on the plan.
Okay. And that'll come out as you finish the analysis.
You talk about the SWIP and the culvert down, isn't that the one near Arthur'sburg that floods?
I'm sorry, sir.
The culvert that you said backs up to Taconic is the one by the Taconic Parkway that we discussed in some great, no different one?
No, it's,
Yeah.
I don't believe it's that far down.
Okay, so it's not by Taconic, and it's on the other side of the road? Okay.
It's probably the next intersection down, I believe.
Just to the west of the
I've got an
site.
overall map.
Just to the west.
To the west of the site on 82.
Okay, so it's not down at the Taconic.
No, it's right on Reed. It's right before Ryan Road going back towards.
I probably misheard, apologize.
Oh, it's a good clarification. You know that was- Any other questions or comments from board members?
The people that'll be using the products that you produce there, which is going to be local contractors coming to buy this materials? and-
Business contractors all over.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Is there anyone here from the public to speak for or against the Paline site plan on Ryan Drive? If you'd like to come up, we have a sign-in sheet. You can sign in and come up to the podium.
One thing I'd like to say as a member of the public, if you don't mind, we're tenants of the Paline, the Gigliotis, and quite frankly, our office building is, to be a tenant, that is quite a feat. They're terrific landlords, and they treat their properties well.
Thank you. What I'll do is just in the order that you sign in, you can come on up to the podium. So.
Hello again. Brian and Peggy Kozlowski, we were here last time. I guess my main concern, our main concern, is that the EPA has to give written approval. I think we have verbal approval, but no written approval to build on a Superfund site. I know our neighborhood is very concerned, and we don't understand how there's going to be approval on a Superfund site to build.
Okay. Tom, maybe you can, I think that's the purview of the EPA, but maybe you can just help us understand what the...
Well, we've gone through this with other projects in the area, and EPA does not have any regulation over the construction within the EPA Superfund site, as amazing as that may seem to all of us.
It's unbelievable.
So the town has no concerns about this?
No, what we addressed in the last project that was in the Superfund site, our major concern was the drinking water. And we sent the applicant and that application off to the health department, and they actually drilled the well before the project progressed here with the town. And the health department approved the well, subject to additional casing, and the water quality was okay with that well. Then it went through the final subdivision approval and was approved. That was for a home. And in that case, there was also a subterranean ventilation system put into the home. But that was not required by EPA. EPA has no regulations over the construction or development within the Superfund site.
Does that mean that we will not be getting written approval from the EPA?
Yeah, EPA has no jurisdiction over it.
Okay, because I thought that was discussed at the last
No,
meeting.
because the Department of Health has to give approval for the septic and well, but not the EPA.
But I believe the applicant did speak with the EPA,
Yeah, a while back.
and that was part of what our discussion was last time.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I looked at the letter that was sent to us, this is being called a contractor yard, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And when I was looking at some of the code for East Fishkill, is this a special permit for a?
It's actually a building material storage yard, is the permitted use that it is.
So I found verbiage regarding contractor yards.
It's similar, but the contractor's yard and the contractor's recycling storage yard is only allowed in I-1 and I-3. The building materials storage yard, I'm looking at my notes because that's exactly what it is in the code. The building materials storage yard is a permitted principal use in the I-2 zone.
So you're calling it, can you tell
It's
me
a
that
building material storage yard.
But
And there
they're
is,
also storing equipment here.
yes, you're allowed to store outdoor equipment and construction material,
But you're not
So-
allowed to process material
but you're not
on the
allowed to
site.
process.
That's the
He
difference.
also spoke of maybe doing that.
Well, he said there's no processing on the site.
He would have to
which
come back.
He would not be permitted to process on site right now.
So the restrictions for contractors' yards would not apply to this property?
This property is a permitted use as a building material storage yard. The contractor's yard and the contractor recycling yard is only allowed in I-1 and I-3, and those conditions are placed on that particular use in I-3 and I-1, sorry, I-3 and I-1 zone. This is I-2, so it's only a building material storage yard.
And are there any restrictions in the code for that particular type?
Other than not allowing processing, no.
That's
Well,
it.
there are bulk area, setbacks, things like that.
Well, that's what I was looking
Yeah.
at, because in the letter that we received from the
Right.
town, it does refer to it as a contractor yard. So when I was looking up the restrictions for contracting yards, you know, they were very specific about being setbacks from a medical facility. Children's Medical Group is very close to this location.
If you look in the dimensional tables of the zoning ordinance for an I-2 zone, it does have requirements for setbacks, building width, lot width, and things like that.
But nothing as specific as for this
Nothing
contractor
additional
yard.
than just the normal things that are in that chart.
Okay, then what about something as general as a special standards for all special permit uses?
It's not a special permit, it's
So
permitted use.
that does not apply for this particular use.
There are special uses that are allowed in that zone, but this is not one of them.
Okay. I guess even though they're not specific to those setbacks, I just do want to point out that Children's Medical Group is very close to there. There is a medical facility. There is a place of public assembly very close. There is adjoining residential property. You know, there's, for the contractor yards, which I think it's similar to that, there are rules regarding the wetlands and water bodies buffer, 100 feet. It's right next to a water, wetlands and water. What else did we see? Moving away from those restrictions, because I guess they don't apply. The gas tank, will they be pumping gas?
Diesel.
They will be pumping diesel, so there's a chance of spillage. We've already talked about the drainage and how great the ground is to absorb everything. That's a concern. Are they recycling asphalt? That was mentioned in the prior meeting.
No.
There will be no recycling of any asphalt.
That would have to be in a contractor's yard, so it wouldn't be allowed, yeah.
Traffic coming off that road onto 82. I see a lot of problems, especially with tractor trailers or trucks and machinery pulling out.
We did review the site for adequate site distance according with DOT standards, and Ryan Drive does meet that, the DOT standard for site distance in both directions.
For all vehicle types?
For what's that?
For all vehicle types?
For all vehicle types.
Is, will Paling Construction be working for the town?
It was a bidder on paving last year, but they would have to bid just like any other contractor. There's no relationship with them other than a contract that was completed.
They wouldn't be able to handle paving here anyway, would they?
Excuse me?
They wouldn't be able to handle paving,
No, not out of that, no.
not out of that
No.
location.
This site is very limited in what
Yeah,
it
I
can
know, I
store
just
and
thought
what
when he...
what it can be
Yeah,
used.
when Tom mentioned
That's
paving,
right, they did
I
do
didn't
that,
want
they
them
had
to
a
think there'd
paving
be paving.
contract, the one annually we bid out paving. And that was done, but obviously the materials for paving would not be at this site. I don't know where they,
Okay, it just seems like such a big construction company, you know, if you go online, you see the huge trucks, and it's very upsetting to know that this is going to be in our backyard. I was counting on, you know, using the regulations for the special permits such that the noise, all those other setbacks, I am a little upset that that's not used for something like this with a neighborhood so very close with a Superfund site. You know, there's just a couple of things that are stacked up against it before
A diesel
they go
truck running in
ahead.
your backyard,
It
fumes
just-
from a truck. There's gonna be fumes from a diesel truck. Everybody knows that.
Okay.
So I don't have anything further.
It's almost like it was forgive me. It was zoned in I-2, back when there was like a gardening center. Probably pre-zoning, I would guess, and your house was built pre-zoning.
In the 60s.
Next to it, yes, the 6, that was pre-zoning. And because that kind of industry was there, it's almost sort of like replacing pickup trucks and wheelbarrows and a light box truck with heavy machinery now and calling it the same thing. I sort of have a problem with that, too.
Thank you. What I'll do, I know a few other folks have signed it. Can you just come on back up for a moment? Let me have the applicant come on back up and just address a couple of the things we just heard. Tell us how you're building the diesel tank, what the spill prevention measures are and things like that. Is it an above-ground tank?
Yeah, basically it's just
be
going to be like, it's just you fuel any equipment that needs to be fueled. It's going to be inside one of the garages. It's like a regular 550-gallon tank. And they have like those, I don't know if you've ever seen them, they have like the box around it. So if there was like a leak, it goes into like a box. It doesn't leak out.
It doesn't go into the ground if it...
No, it's in the garage. It's no different if you have, I have 600 gallons in the basement of my house, diesel fuel. It's no different, you know?
There's a mention that the letters that went out to your neighbors said that this was going to be a contractor yard, and I agree with Michelle, that's actually
Yeah, I
not what
probably
this is.
misworded it. You know, it's supposed to be a contractor, storage, supply yard. Probably shouldn't use contractor, I should use the building.
Okay, I want to make sure that the application then is very clear. I guess I'm looking at you because I want to make sure the application doesn't say this is a contractor's yard. Because again, that wouldn't be a permitted use, so we need to make sure that the terminology in our application matches what you're actually being approved for, so that there would be no confusion about what would be permitted there. With regard to the trucks and the tractor trailers, what was the largest truck size that was going to fit in the site? You did the site circulation?
A 62. I think I just said my width was a little off on the truck.
Okay.
So I just got to adjust that. But I mean,
Okay.
you already have WB62s going in and out of that site for probably however long they've been there for, maybe 10, 15 years. You have them going in and out every day, fire trucks going in and out every day there. So
Okay.
it's already have trucks that size going in and out. There seems to be no problems.
Okay. From onto 82 from
Yes.
Ryan?
You already have people down
And within
there.
your site, because of the 2 driveways, they're
Yeah, and actually our entrances that we have on our site on Ryan Road are quite a bit larger than the other applicants that are on that street that have tractor trailers that size going in. So we should have no problem at all getting them into our site very comfortably.
Okay, thank you. Are you next on our list? Come on up. Yes, sir. Gary. Oh, okay, sorry.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Gary Cielski, 11 Hemlock Drive. This actually will also be in my backyard. I'm not sure how big the acreage is back there and how big that, it looks like a compound to me. Where we live, it's a residential neighborhood. Like you said, there's a house next to this site, there's houses down the road. Across the street is a children's hospital, a gym for little kids, and a storage place. Now, I understand it's a super site or a super fun site, and that, back in the day, this is when, that happened. So zoning laws were put there, and, that's the way it is. I also reached out to Lorenzo, who is part of, I forget, not a very good public speaker, but
That's okay.
the DEP there. He's the project manager of the site. And he did say he has no jurisdiction over this site. But he said he did make suggestions about a double pipe, going through. He said that the Aquafinas, there is a shallow one and a deeper one where they should, to not cause contamination for the rest of everything. I think they should only go, like to the first one and pipe it up, concrete it all, and then shoot down. And he said he did, say that to the developer. Now, is there any possible way we can make sure that that happens? Further contamination doesn't happen in, this. Because right now, it seems as if, things are going more towards their way as ours, as, you guys don't live there in the backyard, like me and my son are out there every day. There's a pond, we skate out there. there is a lot of drainage coming from everywhere else because of, other things that have happened from drainage. Now, if these guys, have more drainage coming in there, like the wetlands back there, like you said, oil, trucks, noise, how far does it extend back into, the properties there? Also, is there anything about the wetlands, like where there's, animals, like I'm back there all the time, there's belly-headed woodpeckers, there's owls, there's, all kinds of things there. Is there any way we could stop this through endangered species, I don't know. I reached out to somebody also in, her name was Laura Hetty from the Hudson River Estuary Program. I haven't gotten back in touch with her yet, but they're saying like these, that's like our little ecosystem back there, and I wish all of you could have that. And, to see this, site coming in and to see an 8-foot wall and a 30-foot building right there, that really doesn't do much for us. And that's about it. I disagree with the whole situation. I think it's more of a residential area than there should be any trucks or anything coming through there. Also, there's another construction site, John Deere, who sells the same products as they do. So, there's two within a quarter of a mile of each other. I just would like to be heard, and that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, a couple questions with regard to, there was a habitat study submitted, because we're hearing owls, we're hearing...
There was a habitat study submitted to New York State DEC on the Natural Heritage Program hit list. The only species that came up as threatened and endangered were the turtle and the bats.
Okay.
She basically said there were no roost trees in the immediate vicinity.
For the bats?
For the bats. And, but she had not 100% completed her review the last time I spoke with her. So she was supposed to finish that. Her last letter actually said that they had received it and that they were in the process of reviewing it. So we haven't gotten final word on that. But she had indicated to me on the telephone when I spoke with her that she would likely have tree clearing restrictions for the bat. The rest of the species out there are not, well, they're not threatened and endangered. The only two that were identified as threatened and endangered were the turtle and the bat. That doesn't mean that this particular loss of habitat wouldn't affect those species. It's just that they wouldn't need a permit necessarily from any agency to disturb the habitat.
Okay. And as far as the other businesses that are near here, this is an I-2 zone, so there's no use that's proposed with this application that is a concern within the I-2 zone. It's all permitted use. I just want to make sure if there's something else that we should be looking at. We've looked at hours of operation, nature of equipment, sound, that sort of thing.
And actually, the contractor's yard was originally allowed in an I-2 zone when they recreated the special permit, or the special permit, and I don't remember exactly how long ago, but it was somewhat recently, which may be why you had some of the older texts. They disallowed straight contractors' yards that allowed processing of materials in this particular zone. So they actually took, took the heavier uses related to a contractor yard out of this particular zone and put it into the I-1 and I-3. And I think also to make sure that those uses were kept away from the local roads because of the generation of truck traffic that some of that brings.
Okay, thank you.
It is the I-2 zone is considered a heavy industrial zone.
Right. Okay. With regard to the well, I know I think we had talked about this either at our last meeting or the meeting before, but you're being required, I know it's not the planning board's purview, but the Department of Health is requiring the double casement.
Yeah, we're going to put an 8-inch casing down to bedrock, grout it to bedrock, and then you're going to put a 6-inch casing down through that, and then down to the bedrock, and so we're going to grout between the 8-inch and the 6-inch.
So I think that is the nature of the well that's being prescribed here is similar to what's been described to you. Okay, who's next on our list?
Ryan Gormley.
Ryan?
Good evening, everybody. Brian Gorman, 110 Oak Ridge Road. I'll be pretty brief. I have a serious reservation with the Superfund site, as been mentioned before. I've been a resident at Oak Ridge Road since 2006, and in that time, we've had at least 4 tests done of our water and so, just the area around it. I don't personally I admit that this is not my area of expertise, but I'm asking for the town's help here. I can't imagine that putting up, 12,000 square feet of building? 4, yeah, so that much building, parking lot, everything around it, could not disturb whatever contaminants are in the soil and bring them back up and revisit them upon all of us who are in that area, and make it worse. I can't fathom that that's the possibility. So to me, I really strongly feel that the town should have some kind of documentation, some kind of survey done, something to assure me. I want to see something on paper that says, look, we've looked, this is safe, here's the proof. I can't imagine that this is safe. Every map they've ever shown of the Superfund site, it originated from, Hopewell Precision, and came down towards us at Oak Ridge Road and out across 82, I think, and down that way. They're the first, grid in that parcel. So it's got to be the most contaminated piece. I can't imagine it wouldn't be. That's really in a nutshell what I have to say. Just please, if there's anything that can be done here, I'd really like to see some kind of proof that this is not revisiting everything that we've been trying to put behind us.
I'd like to just check for a second. I understand his concerns too, as well as we do. This is our site too, so we don't want contamination, honestly. So we did go out there with the town.
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear you. Sir, if you don't mind, we'll just have it so that we can have a discussion.
We did go out there, I think about a month ago with the town. We did some deep test pits on the site in different couple locations. And while we were out there, we took it upon ourselves. We had an independent testing agency come out. We tested all the soils at different elevations from like 10 foot, 5 foot, 9 foot, and the results came back. There's nothing in the soil. It's perfectly clean.
How deep did you go?
We took one at like 5, one at 10 foot. I think one was at 9 foot, tested the soil.
Okay, you wouldn't hit anything.
And the soil was perfectly clean. And I know they're concerned, but all that we're doing is pretty much subsurface. We don't have no basement, or it's going to be a slab on grade. The well, we're putting in that well deep. We're going to take the test that the Board of Health wants us to for the water. I'm sure it's going to come back clean. Once you go into the bedrock, you're going to have clean water. So that's the whole point of doing the double casing. So I don't know if that makes them feel at ease, but we did do some soil testing. The soil's coming back with absolutely no traces of anything in it.
Okay.
So.
And have you provided those results to our
No,
files?
I do have some copies that this was done before, after the submittal process, so I can give you some copies if you want to see it tonight. I brought some copies for you. I can leave it to
Okay.
you.
I think we'd like that as part of our record, and it sounds like that may give some comfort. That means that the soils that might be disturbed at the surface as they do construction, or as they're storing materials on site, there's no contamination found in that layer of soil. I don't think it addresses the other concerns that you may have about what happens with the plume under the ground, but.
Not exactly. I mean, not completely. It's helpful. Anything's helpful at this point. But I'd really prefer to see something from the town side, something official, if it's done by the EPA. I understand that it's been already gone over. It's not their jurisdiction, and the law doesn't actually prevent this, yada, yada. But I still feel that because of everything we've been through, I mean, that we had to put the town water in. I mean, this has been, the drainage isn't because of the Superfund site, but this whole area has been through a lot of concerns for years. And I just feel that this is opening up a huge possibility for additional concerns, and it's not being preemptively looked at thoroughly enough to say, okay, there's no reason to worry here. I hope there's not, but that's really
Let me ask a question. I mean, when I look at this, first of all, there's not going to be any showers there, right? I mean, basically, I'm thinking this is going to be a less intense use of water site than 3 homes.
Then once.
Well, wait a minute, are you gonna be washing trucks and vehicles?
No, it's a warehouse store. Well, we'll keep an eye on it.
Off-site? Go to a car wash?
Then you wouldn't need diesel on site to run the engines, because you could drive on the road.
Yeah, but it's cheaper, that's cheaper.
Well, I mean, as was mentioned, the wetlands is right next door, so all this, any digging, any disturbance of any contaminants that might be there could end up in that wetland, and from there, I don't know the water table, I'm not an expert, but from the maps I've seen, it looks like that's where the contaminants have always gone and followed that whole stream. So it's just giving it the avenue to continue and make this possibly worse. So I have never seen anything that said, you know, the EPA and everyone still comes around and tests. It's still going on, to my knowledge, unless it stopped in the last year or two. So there's obviously a concern, and here we are, we're going to dig up enough space for 1,200 square feet of building, parking lots. I mean, basically, as far as I'm concerned, that whole lot's going to be, you know, touched with a shovel. So that's a lot of .0 dirt to kick up. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, isn't there going to be, I thought we talked about when we addressed the dusting last time, they would spray down piles of things that were brought in, storage to prevent dust from going out to neighbors' properties, just for water usage.
I'm sorry.
Didn't we discuss last time
Dust
about the
control.
dust problem with neighbors, that you would, when things were brought in, if they were dry and dusty, when you dumped them, they'd be sprayed
Yeah,
down?
we said if there was any, we shouldn't really have dust on the type of materials we're selling there, but if we did, we do have a water truck that'll be on site, and we can mist it down if we thought there was something.
Yeah, that was the only other water usage that I remember.
That was it.
Do we have another name on the list, I think?
Yes, Philip.
Philip?
How you doing tonight?
Good.
Name's Phil Glinka. I happen to be a resident. I bought up to that property. I actually owned the property that they butt up to at one time, but the town needed it for water drainage. So I have a interesting perspective on the whole thing. I'm not looking forward to coming home and looking at a huge building while I try to go home and look at the stars. And they're gonna try to cover it with an 8-foot whatever. My other concern is, now, right now, it's zoned I-2, correct?
Yes.
So really, they could do what they want. I'm okay with that, I understand that part of it. Right now, there's 3 individual lots?
Yes. Yeah, they're proposing to consolidate them into one
So
lot.
originally, it was designed for 3 I-2 businesses, correct? Correct. So it's really the board that's bringing in this huge business and changing it to 3 acres to support it, when originally it was not designed for that. That's the board, that's not EPA, DEC,
This
anybody
board
else.
doesn't ask that tax lots be combined or anything like that. This board absolutely is not requesting this or asking for this. We have a property owner that has come before us with a request
That
to
is
develop
correct.
their
I'm
land.
not saying you're requesting it. You're deciding on it. You're making that decision to bring in this bigger company to fit in there. It's not anybody else that's doing it. It's not DEC. It's not the Army
We're the
Corps of
lead agency,
Engineers.
That's correct.
Because this wouldn't fit it unless you change the lines. So you're the ones putting it in there that I have to look at.
Okay.
You don't have to look at it. I have to look at it. Now, as far as the water drainage, that's what that area is for. They're going to be draining into that area too. And that butts right up against my existing property. Hasn't flooded yet. Good job so far, Scott. But it hasn't rained hard either. And they got heavy equipment I happen to be a mechanic. Hydraulic lines. You're telling me a hydraulic line ain't gonna burst, dump into that wetlands? Who's gonna say it's not? You? You? I doubt it. So I'm concerned about that. And then on the other side of 82, it drains into a pipe, you said a big culvert pipe, right? But on the other side of 82, there's two small culvert pipes, and that's why it backs up. And they want it to back up to hold the water, which is good. I understand what they're trying to do. But now you're adding more. And then if there's a spill, where's it gonna sit? Right there. And it's gonna flood up on my property. I mean, you guys don't have to worry about it. DEC says it's okay. But you're the ones making the decision to put that big thing in there. Otherwise, it wouldn't fit. The other thing I'm a little concerned about is traffic. There's been some really, really severe accidents. Has anybody looked into that over there?
This gentleman's the traffic engineering consultant right here in the blue shirt.
Have you looked into that?
Into the traffic safety?
Remember that Corvette accident out there? No? Guy was medevaced out? You don't remember that one? How about the tractor trailer?
These were cars exiting Ryan Drive.
They were exiting Palin, I believe, right next to Ryan Drive, right in that vicinity. I'm concerned about that. Concerned about fumes. So, I mean, hey, it's in your control, but I just wanted to voice my opinion. Have a good night.
Thank you. I'll back up if you would for a second. As far as the nature of what you'll do with the equipment on site, just walk us through. You're using it for storage, are you going to be doing any mechanical
No,
work
it's
on the
storage. I
equipment?
mean, we're road builders, so I mean, most of our equipment's out on road jobs, whether it's your town, the town next door, town down in Westchester, so if one of these machines isn't on a job, it's going to be either parked in the garage or it's going to be parked outside, It's pretty much it is. You might have a dump truck that's parked there that'll be used in the morning to go out to work, and maybe it goes back in the afternoon. You will have some equipment that's for the supply yard that's working, maybe a loader or a forklift loading, a resident with some stone in their pickup or, stuff like that. It's pretty much what it is, a storage yard, supply yard,
Any equipment that you anticipate running for long periods of time?
No, just like I said, just your everyday, the supply yard, forklifts and maybe a little loader,
But a forklift isn't going to be
Yeah.
running constantly, it's going to run if you
well,
need
yeah,
to move something.
exactly. If someone comes in,
So
runs,
is there
gets
any
something.
other equipment on site that would run more consistently than
No.
that?
20 machines.
Not like a consistent basis.
And again, no processing on site, no screeners?
No, like I said, the only thing would be a screener. We could come back someday if we even do it. Like I just say, we don't own a screener. There's not going to be a screener there, so it would only be something that we bring in on maybe when we get rolling there or something. If we need to bring it in for a day, we come back to you guys for a special permit just to bring it in as a rental for the day, do what we had to do and take it out.
I just want to be clear, it's not a permitted use in that zone, so that's unlikely.
I understand.
But wouldn't you be doing things like loading up, say, a dump truck or a front loader?
Well, yeah, it's the supply yard.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Exactly.
I mean, that may be not a consistent use.
Yes.
But it's going to be for a long period of time when you're loading your truck.
It takes probably about 5 minutes to load a truck. It's material. So if you load a truck up 5 minutes, the guy goes, you might get another guy right behind him, or it could be 2 hours before you get another person. We don't know.
So I mean, so I just said the word consistent, just,
Yeah, I mean, if you be consistent, minute by minute, hour by hour, no, it's not gonna be, when the thing starts up at 7 in the morning and runs to 5 at night, no, it's not gonna be like that. It's gonna be as needed.
And no equipment repair on site or anything like that?
No.
Yeah, but according to that, according to that.
How frequently do you wash the trucks?
To be honest
where?
with you, we don't wash our trucks that much. So, I said, to be honest with you, we don't really wash our trucks that much. We see these beautiful trucks out there, but no, we don't wash the equipment. Maybe, I can't even tell you.
But I mean, are we allowed to wash?
Yeah, I mean, it's not every day, it's not a car wash.
Yeah, I mean-
You wash your car,
I mean, are we allowed to wash it?
it's like washing your car at your house. How many times do you do it? You do it once in a while, wash.
I would be curious to know, what, is this a more water-intensive use than a house, than
No,
3 houses?
it's less.
If everyday equipment's coming back and you're washing the
It'd be
equipment
less than one
down, then
house.
that's a different
It would be less than one house.
I'm going to just ask the question, I know you're in the paving business. Is it your intent, like in the winter months, to store your paving equipment in this yard?
Yeah, actually, we'd probably park our 2 pavers inside the garage.
Rollers?
Yeah, park the rollers there over the winter time.
So I think that's just something we need to
Yeah.
look at,
How so?
to see whether in fact that's permitted or not. That's what we're looking at. I know if it's ancillary to loading out mulch and stone, that's fine, but,
Which is more material sales yard.
but I'm hearing now they may use it just to store
Well,
all
that's what I'm
their
trying to
equipment,
flesh out,
so.
exactly what
Right.
the purpose is, so.
Is construction equipment permitted use for storage?
That's what we're,
Michelle, we may need to look into that a little bit further.
I mean, it's store outdoor equipment and construction material.
Outdoor equipment and construction material.
So all their equipment's outdoors.
but that's different than a landscape supply yard.
What we're using it.
Whether or not you can do it, I don't think we're going to decide right now, just so we understand, because I think our perception was this is a landscape supply yard versus a quote-unquote equipment storage yard.
Well, I've always put it as both, you know, it would be a storage and slash, I mean, some equipment.
Well, that's
I
why
can
we're
park
just
there.
trying to
Yeah,
get our arms
exactly.
around that right now, so,
All right.
that's all.
So this is
But you've
basic,
provided to us the nature of all equipment that would be stored on
Yeah.
site, that's in our file now, so Scott, we can compare that to
Yeah.
what the zoning code allows.
I know you
If we
mentioned
need an
excavator
interpretation.
earlier, which I wasn't quite clear on, but now the
Yeah.
paver, the roller, so now I'm getting a better picture of it.
You know, that list too, I give you, I'm not limiting myself to that list, it's just I give you some examples, you know, of
Okay. Did your examples include some of the heavier equipment? So that'll give us the feel for it.
So this-
What we'll do is we'll come back next time and if we have questions or we have concern or something's not permitted, we'll have that conversation and figure out what can and can't be done at the site. Because I think Michelle made the right point earlier, this is not actually a contractor yard, that's not a permitted use here, so.
is this going to be like a staging area as you get work in the area? You bring in different types of equipment in the store there to respond to the job that you have in the area?
we already have a set fleet of equipment, so we, you know, if we buy a new piece of equipment, it gets added to our fleet. If we get rid of one, it's out of our fleet.
Well, yeah, but I know, you say you're a road builder,
Yeah,
road builders,
we work
right?
all over, you know, this-
So normally they have a staging area, different areas along the project that they're working on, or something like that, you know?
yeah, but we work all over, so it's not like we're staying, this is, you know, this is our yard, this is, we're
Well,
gonna
this is gonna
sell
be your
stuff out of our
primary yard.
yard, and this would be our, yeah, we also have other yards, one other yard too, but we're not staging all our jobs when we work out of this
No,
yard.
but you know what I'm saying,
Yes.
you know that's where, if you're building a throughway, you're gonna have several locations where your equipment, you're not gonna run it back and
Oh,
forth
no,
the
exactly.
length of the throughway.
No, exactly.
A lot of times, there's not going to be very
Much equipment there,
at
no,
all,
at all.
quite honestly.
Okay.
Like you said, yeah.
And in the wintertime, our pavers and rollers are kept in the garage, never start until April. And when they do start up, it's not because we're paving there, because
Well, yeah,
they're on the job.
yeah, you're not gonna
You're
do
going to
pay.
have as much equipment as people are thinking. I can't tell you how much, if there's a lot of equipment there, we're not busy.
Yeah,
A lot of
right,
equipment there.
right. If the yard's full, you're not making any money. Okay.
Can we kind of run through the list of open issues here? just so
Yeah,
I'm
but-
sure?
I've got quite a few. Did you want to run through your list, or you want me to run through my list?
I can start.
All right, go for it.
Going back, I mean, the ones that I think are still wide open are the accidents. Brendan, can we ask? Next one was Scott or Joe, I mean, can we get some kind of a reading on the water intensity of this thing versus, I mean, it is in a Superfund site, right? So, versus 3 homes. There's the issue about the proximity to the children's hospital and all that. Is there,
This is a permitted use in
it is a
I-2, I mean,
permitted use,
that's-
and so that just the normal setbacks, or there's
We
no...
can double check with Michelle, I think she went to go get the
Okay,
other quote.
that's kind of what I thought too. I mean, I got a
We'll
couple
double check with
circles
Michelle
around
though
that
when she
one.
comes back.
The Habitat, I think the rest, go ahead, you can...
I've got the habitat study. I want to make sure you give us the copies of the testing that you've already done, and if there's other tests that you're doing in the future, I'd like to have that for our record. clarifying the nature of the equipment and contractor yard versus what's permitted the building material storage. Because the I-2 doesn't allow the contractor yard, so once we look at the equipment, we can figure out how that needs to work. I had something else. You already talked about the traffic. Excellent. Oh, and the truck, you needed to update your truck turning
Yeah,
radius,
yeah.
and the SWIP is not complete yet, so we need to see the completed SWIP and how that's going to fit in.
Do one question concerning the equipment storage. You do guys do a lot of road work, which means you have pavers and rollers and all that kind of stuff. And all that's transported on rather large beds strapped down. I assume that when you talk about storage, those will be stored over the winter on the site?
What, the trucks?
The trucks, both the transport vehicle and the equipment
Yeah,
themselves?
you can have trucks and trailers that make.
Yeah, and they're very large. Yes.
Yeah, you see every day on the roads.
Joe, with anything that we've talked about, is there anything that changes what we're looking at with the SWIP? And I'm sorry, the SWIP deals with the stormwater on site and how water moves, what comes onto the site and how it moves off the site. I don't mean to use a term if you guys hadn't heard that before.
I think the only thing that maybe to take a look at is that maybe not just the first culvert under 82, but the gentleman mentioned there's other nearby culverts that might be more restrictive than that one, so we may need to quantify what that is and how that may back up water under 82. And since it's going to 82, we might want to, depending on what their results show, if it does show a very small increase, we may want them to show that to the DOT and make sure DOT is okay with that.
Okay.
So, and then as far as the soil testing goes, it's fine that you did that work, but somebody should probably also kind of look at that in the context of the Superfund review and, state that the right tests were run and, what do the findings actually mean, and, put a little more thought into a conclusion on what those test results mean.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else on our list from the public? Jay?
Hi, Jay Livermore, was it 1318 Route 82? I don't know if you guys noticed, but half of that is 5 feet below Ryan Road, which means they're going to build it up. It's just going to flood right into our backyards. Does anybody know where that water's going to go? That means you're going to have to make it bigger to flood out through 82. I don't care what you say, it is going to flood. I know that land. I know it really well. It'll flood his yards, their yards, my yard. I'm even on the other side of Oak Ridge, and I know it'll flood that far. So.
I don't remember anything mentioning fill before.
They obviously have to build it up, because it's 5 feet below.
Maybe they're not, that's why. He's saying that there's a depression area about 20 feet up the road, you said, something like that?
Half the acre.
Half the
Actually,
acre.
it's only like 2 feet, and then it drops off 5 feet down.
Are you?
It's all leveled out.
That's going to fill it.
Yeah, it's about an acre and a half, you have to fill it. Yeah, but that floods right now. It floods all the way up to Ryan Road. I know for a fact it does.
This property?
Yeah, I know for a fact it does. No matter what drainage they fixed, it still floods. It goes all the way up to Ryan Road and goes right into that house across the street. Floods his yard.
Okay. Scott, is this something that?
We'll take a look at
Like
that. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. I don't think it's showing up on the FEMA maps. We can still do a review of that, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything? Is it? Anyone else on the list? Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak for or against the Paline site plan on Ryan Drive?
I have 2 follow-up questions.
Sure, come on back up. And just, if you don't mind, give us your name one more time for the record so
Sure.
we keep track of.
It's Peggy Kozlowski. Where would I find the definitions of a contractor yard versus a building material storage yard?
In in the code that's, has to be amended through 2011. I'm going to check with the town clerk tomorrow as to whether it's been updated on the website, because Michelle just went in and got the more recent book. Because I
Okay.
was using one that didn't have those amendments either.
Okay.
So I'll check with the clerk, but or you can pick one up at the clerk, planning board clerk's office.
And what do I reference when I,
It was in definitions and zoning. We'll have all
Okay.
the definitions of the different uses.
2011, you said?
And make sure it's amended through 2011. That's when.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Mhm.
And somebody did bring up, are there any rules regarding competitive businesses within a certain amount of area?
No.
There are no rules in regarding that?
Yeah, just a couple of comments I want to make is that when an application comes into the planning board, it is referred to various other agencies. I don't want people to think that, there isn't. And the referral's made to DEC, that's the Department of Environmental Conservation, which has jurisdiction over many items. One is the habitat and the bats and the turtles. So if they identify a habitat, they will then tell the planning board and the applicant through being part of that process whether they require any special things to be addressed. The wetlands normally would be a DEC if it's a New York State wetland. I believe the wet area on this site is actually regulated by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. And submitted in the record is a letter from the Army Corps which allows them to make whatever modifications they have proposed to have the site there. So that's regulated by the Army Corps. The town in 2006 enacted its own wetlands law, which does impose a 50-foot buffer around the Army Corps wetlands law. But if the Army Corps consents to a modification of it, then we just have to control the 50-foot area to make sure no activity occurs that would damage that. The EPA is not a required referral agency, but they are notified of these things. As I said before, they take no position on it. And the last time, about 3 years ago, we went through a 2-lot subdivision on the other side of 82, and we were aghast that we thought the same as the community. But as long as the wells were installed somewhat in what's being described here, I remember from that one, it was acceptable to them. If the driveway were going out onto the state road, DOT would be involved. So all I'm trying to say is that all other agencies that regulate bits and pieces of it have been notified and involved in it. So now what the planning board's trying to do is to coordinate all that information and to see that the applicant's in compliance with all that and that the project complies with the local requirements as far as the site plan. So the public hearing, you've brought up issues tonight, which the chair lady has recognized, to be important and to have to be addressed.
And just one last comment. Phil brought up the 3 subdivisions.
3 separate lots, right?
Going into one. Can you
Yeah.
explain a little bit more
Sure.
about what happened with that?
Well, what happens is a property owner can buy a property, the zoning districts for any district has a minimum lot size. So you can't have a lot smaller than that if you want to come in and get approval for a commercial use. But there's no limit as to the lot, how big the lot could be. So if you own several lots next to each other, you're allowed to propose an application that would allow an activity on all 3 lots, or in this case, 3 lots. So in all 3 lots, there's no prohibition about how big it could be. The prohibition is that can't be too small.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, did you want to ask a question? Thank you all for your comments. It helps us to hear what's happening, and so we appreciate that feedback. We have a few follow-up items that we need to get. You guys have some stuff you look at for us. Michelle, hopefully we can get a response from the DEC on those. If we can gather the traffic information, accident information, I think that would be great. How much time do you need for some of the other things we've talked about? February 5th or February 19th? February 19th? Okay. Michelle, do you think that's enough time? I'm
For
hoping
the
we can hear
DEC?
something back from the DEC.
Yeah, the letter they sent was quite a while ago. I can't remember the exact date of that letter, I think it was a while ago.
Okay, so That all being said, unless anyone has any other questions or comments, do I have a motion to adjourn the Paline site plan public hearing to February 19th?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So February 19th will be the next time this is on our agenda. Thank you.
You know, sometimes there's bigger discrepancies, so I mean, we know that.
The next item on our agenda is a discussion for Taconic Innovations amended site plan on Route 376.
So I promised I'd be here, and we're here. So what we're here tonight is to talk about the Taconic Innovations application that's currently before the board. As you know,
And the marker sign is, it's like attached to it.
this piece right here was known as, we're going to call it 877. This piece right here is 879. This was the Motorola building. That building is sitting in about that spot right there. You may have remembered the old application had a new driveway coming in here, and we had a not so optimum configuration here. Matthias is here tonight. He purchased this piece, and it allowed us to basically step back, take a new look at this project. And what we've done is we're proposing, right now they currently own a project over here, a building is 872. They're loaded to the gills. I mean, the sheetrock's pressing out. And they've now begun construction of this. That doesn't stop them. We're now proposing a two-story, 22,300 square foot building here. As I mentioned last week, or sorry, last month. Last month? No, this month. Last year.
12/18.
Yeah. This is a courtyard that we're, basically it's a square building with an interior courtyard. We've met with the owners. We're proposing right now these two parking areas. We wish to land bank this parking area here. We have changed this. We've moved some of the spaces here. We've created a better loading zone, we think, for this area. This area here doesn't need such, the loading zone, or basically everybody can unload here as you come in. The septic area will be back here. As you can see, we've got it laid out. The storm sewer, we're going to combine both storm and put it on this side of the project. Currently, there's a well right there. We'd like to use it. We met with the Board of Health earlier this week. They had asked, because of the size of the building, it becomes a public water supply. They asked that we contact Scott to talk about extending the water main, which is down here right now. I think verbally, they have other, right now we don't feel the capacity is there. We are going to develop that well for these two properties, or develop, I mean, we're going to utilize that well. We're going to create a public water supply system with that. As you can
Sorry,
see.
Mark, I didn't follow that. You are going to extend the pipe? Even though you have a well?
No,
we're going to use the existing.
We're going to use this well.
Thank you.
What we're going to do is, since the well's out front, in the event this water main ever does get extended, we have the ability, because it'll be right out front, we can tie in. So that's one of the reasons why we'd like to reuse that. We didn't do a lot of landscaping on this because we really wanted to show the board what we were thinking about first. We fully are aware that, you know, landscaping here is going to be kind of critical. We want it to look more campus style, so we are going to embellish that quite a bit. And we're aware, we're not showing that right now. We will do that in the next submission. We spent a lot of time on this right now. We think we've got the stormwater worked out. We think we've got, obviously, septic. Water was the next issue, and I met with them, them being the Board of Health. We think we have that resolved. And we've got comments from the consultants, and basically we're just here to hear what you think.
Mark,
Sorry, go ahead.
Bear with me. Just give me a sense of the size of that courtyard. Is it 50 by 50?
40 by 40.
40 by 40, okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's, what you're looking at, I didn't keep one.
That's all right.
I don't Basically, what you're looking at is we're going to be going with a brick It's a two-story brick. We're going to be using a semicircular on both the front and the back. We're going to use curtain walls in the front, give it a little bit of a flair. Metal roof. The colors we're not sold on yet. We've got to meet on that yet, but we're going to be using a metal roof with a balustrade around it, with dental, if you will, and just to try to set it apart from the other building a little bit.
I guess that was one of the other questions I had, is it seems like, they're sharing a driveway and they're clearly, well, they're not for the same purpose, they're kind of affiliated businesses. Why don't you want the two buildings to look a little more similar?
There's a big reason for that.
Okay.
Due to tax reasons, they purchased this building so that they could take credit for last year's tax credits. This building sits inside this building, some assembly required, but it's all in there. All the windows are in there, all the siding's in there, everything's in there, because they had to purchase it by the end of the year. So this building is in pieces in the existing Bonte building.
It's in storage.
Yes. It's all there. The trusses are behind the building, it comes with carpet. I met with the ARB a couple of weeks ago, actually the same day we were doing the deep test pits. He said the same thing. He goes, I want to revisit, I want you to look at this. I said, I can't. That whole building is in here. So I don't, we thought about it, what can we do to change it? Really,
But even if it was like a brick accent somewhere or a green shading,
yeah, we
not
could
sure
do
the
it.
waterfall on
We're
it.
gonna do
I mean, something that at least shows that they're
Connected?
yeah.
Here's what we were
Are they
thinking.
connected? Let me ask a question. Is there a primary difference of use between the two?
There is, but there's also this other concern. You got to remember, you got, this has a residential feel to it, this other building, Campanaro. You got residential around here. This is damn it, the gentleman who fixes pneumatic equipment. How's that?
Right.
And then there's Swords. So we're trying to, then you've got the plaza over here, you got the Sun's Italy, I believe? Sun's Italy. So we're trying to keep a little bit of a residential feel, and then this we thought we want to set it aside a little bit. I don't want them to look the same, to be honest with you.
I'm not saying they should look the same. I would just like them to feel like they belong together since they're sharing a driveway. And you're coming in and you're going through two buildings that are completely different on either side of you, but you're entering a site, what's gonna feel like one site. I don't know.
Well, we'll think about it. I told the
And I'm not looking for siding and coloring to be exactly the same, but just, maybe it's
They're
even
two
by
different-
signage or something like, I don't know.
It's two different materials, two different, this is hardy plank, this is gonna be brick, and ephes and/or shadow block, metal roof. I mean, it's gonna be completely different. And we thought about, honestly, I met
What
with
about like
him.
awnings or something like that, or some, I don't know, I'm just,
How would awnings marry that to that?
I don't know.
That would
Let's see
put me
what the
farther
ARB
out
has to
there.
say, because they have to us, really.
The ARB feedback was that they wanted the two buildings to have a more similar feel,
The RB
a
said?
campus feel.
A campus to me is normally different, weird-looking buildings, kind of
Yeah,
staggered around as they get built over the years. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I hate to say it, I mean, we like the idea of having two separate, I know it won't mix, but nothing here does. So,
I think it'll look great, it's a lot better than now.
I could keep Bonte's building and paint it red.
There you go. Mark, is there a difference in the
Nobody's
use, of- or
suggesting that.
Matthias, is there a different use in the buildings? I mean, is there a fundamentally different type of kid in there? Because you said there's differences in the drop-offs.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it may, yeah, there's different things.
What is the difference?
The 877 is primarily a therapist center. The 879 is probably administration upstairs, administration help downstairs, and partly habilitation services.
Oh, okay.
Right, the lower level of 879, as Matthias said, this is what they call the day program. So you have clients in there. The other half of that is administration for the day program, and then upstairs is fully administration. This is therapy.
Okay, so there's a lot more in and out in the smaller bulkhead.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So that's why it needs that different. Okay.
Correct.
Mark, did you get your footings in? I mean, last time yeah, that was the objective, right?
Cleared.
Okay.
Their footings, I believe, are, I want to say tomorrow, or it's this week, I know they're actually.
That's a perm, you have a perm.
Yes, yes.
Yes, we do have a permit. Thank you.
Rarity.
I guess we deserve that.
That's a good question to ask.
As far as the land-based parking goes, I think that's appropriate, you know, as long as it will fit there if it's needed, and you know it's not going to be needed right now. We just need to make sure we have a clear picture of the use, the number of folks you expect to be full-time employees versus drop-off, occupancy, that sort of thing.
We've spent a lot of time on this plan, and I had the benefit of going to Mount Vernon to visit one site. We think this is adequate for this building. We think this is adequate for this building. A lot of the people are drop-off. And in the event that we would ever need it, we have it. I think Michelle alluded to 4 more we need. We could certainly get them by rearranging the refuse enclosure and getting it. We just, the feeling of just pumping more spaces in there that we'd never use.
Yeah, I don't see having more asphalt than you need, as long as you have the space for it. Should it change use or something like that?
I think they
just don't mean
technically
change
need
use, but should they
farmer
use, demand more than you're expecting?
I think they technically need 4 more spaces, but I don't necessarily mean they can ask you for a relief from that. And I don't think that there's a reason why you couldn't grant that particular relief.
Okay.
I think it was 80, is it 80? I can't remember the number.
So we know we're forward out, but we could get it if we needed it.
There's no reason to pave any building in now.
We appreciate that.
And then, Mark, I guess the only other thing I would say is, if there's a way, I know you're trying to provide access to what will hopefully be land banked parking that you don't need. If there's a way to bring the, that roundabout down, you know, if you want to bring it down to just a second parking lot so that you don't have such a long loop in the drive.
Well, we got the refuse enclosure here anyway.
So you wouldn't bring it up like 20 feet.
Well, then you're gonna block.
Well, then, yeah, I wouldn't be able to get this movement. That's really what we're trying to get here, to be able to make the swings. You see what I'm saying?
Which move?
If you drive in this way
Yeah.
and you're coming to this facility, you'd make this loop,
Right.
and then this is where the refuse enclosures would be. So, I'm not sure, maybe I missed what you said?
Yeah, what I'm saying is, you're coming all the way up here. I'm asking why you're not cutting it like this.
We just wanted to create a green space here, an area that kind of, because we're gonna landscape this.
I was gonna say.
Well, that's gonna be my next question, because this just looks like kind of a grassy field that you're trying to, it almost looks like a running track or something.
That's Dennis's thing. Dennis did the Google SketchUp. You could talk to him.
Okay.
Nice
So you're gonna
nice
put
rain
some
garden.
garden, a tree?
Yeah, I mean, at this
gazebo
point
or
right now,
something?
we'll embellish it a little bit more.
Okay.
Basically, we just wanted to get here to finalize everything on the site plan before we really got into the landscaping and lighting.
Okay. And then you are, with the use of the, I'm sorry, Matthias, the use of the building, do you need any outdoor recreation space for the folks that are in the day program?
No,
Or is that all just in the?
In the courtyard,
In the courtyard?
you know, it's designed.
Okay. And the other building would have no requirement to have?
We have an area down here in this lower area.
Okay.
We have an area of
outdoor
refuge there.
recreation?
I'm sorry.
For outdoor recreation?
Right.
Okay.
It's a fenced-in area.
Okay.
One of the things that was brought up in the traffic engineer's comment letter, there's no school buses here. It's not served by school buses. As far as...
I think I had a misconception of looking at the plan and thinking it was a daycare.
Oh, okay, sorry. As far as the refuse enclosure, we met with Royal. This is actually their best. They said this is what we'd like to do. They'll come in with a front discharge. They'll say the guy will back up, turn around, and drive out. And if he can get in my place, he can get in this.
And you have provision for recycle and?
Yes. There's, see the walkway there? There's a recycling on both sides. There's both recycling and regular domestic. As far as the entrance, we met with the DOT out here. They were elated we were getting out of here. This was an approved entrance. We are going to meet with them again to go through the comments that you had made, just to make sure they're happy with it. But this entrance was actually installed whenever this building was built. It was under bond, and they did approve it.
And you're not seeing a
Yes.
need for a turning lane or anything for the exit, for the left turn out?
No, the traffic here is generally off-peak. It's not a peak generator for this area.
Yeah, one of my comments would be to try to get a little bit more information and better handle on the traffic, because, I mean, if we just look at it as an office building use of 22,300 square feet, and another building that probably even has more intense traffic than I envision as being a daycare, you know, if you look at peak hour traffic, you know, look at publications where we're gonna get that traffic data from, you're gonna show a substantial amount of traffic generation.
Yeah, it's hard because it doesn't fit into any one of those categories.
What are the-
I mean, Matthias, you can explain it best. A lot of the clients are staggered. The people are dropped off and staggered.
Even if there is some operational plan that you have at your other facility, whether we could, you know, get that and get a better understanding of that, because,
What are the hours? What are the hours of operation?
For 879 or 878, for which of these types? For both, they're different hours.
Different hours.
'Cause I do know, like, in the PM peak,
Yeah, that would
westbound,
be-
traffic backs up right past the site.
but you would have and that would really be the critical time frame too, especially if 3/4 of that building is administrative staff that's going to be there on a normal business day, then we, at the end of a normal business day being around 5 o'clock.
Yeah, we normally do the staggers from 7 to 3, 8 to 4, 9 to 5.
Yeah, see, they stagger their shifts.
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, and then you can relate, I mean, if they stagger it and the building's not full, I mean, if they stagger it and the building's full all the time, you know, I mean, it's a difference. I mean, I think we have to understand that, because, you know, you could conceivably be dumping, you know, 75 to 100 cars on to 376 in a PM peak hour, which could cause some pretty significant issues.
Okay, well, we can give you the information for, say, Mount Vernon. You know, like, they've staggered the shifts for that reason. Mount Vernon it's tight down there. I mean, it's
Right.
much worse than this. So.
Right. Yeah, I would, you know, part of the process that the planning board is doing is in coordination with the DOT. I get involved with that, and we'll join you in whatever meeting you arrange for. Or I'll even assist you in helping to arrange those meetings with the permit engineer or whoever else is going to be with.
Okay.
Yeah, the issue I saw with that, I'm not sure how they got the original highway work permit signed off on, but the east curb line.
Those are good old days.
Yeah, the east curb line on the entrance drops down a couple of feet, and I mean, that situation needs to be rectified. I mean, it's not the standard, it's a roadside hazard as it exists.
No, we
So, I
agree.
mean, you agree, right? I mean, I think.
No, we do.
The project itself, although the work in the highway boundary is minor, it's going to require a highway work permit. You have an existing driveway for the other lot, even though it's just a small pad of asphalt, it has to come out. So you wasn't gone yesterday.
This pad right here?
There's a construction access point.
That's over here.
No, there's a construction access, there's a riprap, you know, construction access.
Right here. Right here?
No, right onto 376.
On this side?
Yeah. I'll, actually, even the pictures that I sent along with you today, that's right there. There's a construction access. There's orange fence across it right now. But there's,
Yeah, that's the old driveway.
There's riprap and there's an old driveway.
Yeah, that was the old driveway.
But that existing driveway is going to have to come out.
That comes out.
Right, but even though it's minor work,
Right,
it's in the
I
highway
understand.
boundary, it's machinery, it's next to, you know, traffic, so it's going to require a permit from the DOT. I mean, I'm assuming that's included in a permit that you already have for that site that's going on right now.
Well, we notified them that this permit is going to have to come out.
Because when I look at it, and I looked at the, you know, the current standard for the highway entrance, it does seem to fit. I don't have any, I think that's good. On the diagrams you showed for the emergency vehicle access, the edge of pavement wasn't shown. The white line is shown, and you do show the edge of pavement on your regular site plan.
Oh, it's off.
But it's off on that one, and I actually think some of your tracking is actually off the pavement.
Okay.
Because it's not, that whole quadrant, because of that that condition, isn't paved, you know, symmetrically to the other side.
Okay, we'll check.
And then we did talk about, you know, this is not a need for a school bus, but even a small tractor trailer delivery vehicle. I don't think it's an issue. I think.
Yeah, I think we're okay. We got 25 foot up here. This existing driveway is 25 feet, everywhere else is 24 feet. We've looked at it,
Okay, yeah, and I think,
loaded, we think, okay, when you move in, you may, you're gonna have a tractor trailer probably backing in here, because we have a rear door here, which we assume will be the move-in day, and then for the front, but you're not gonna get typically tractor.
yeah, even now, some, FedEx deliveries are in small tractor trailers now.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's something, I think your site will accommodate it,
Okay.
but, in terms of showing you show the diagram, for the emergency vehicle, but, if you could show a diagram for WV-42. And I think the one you have in there for the ladder truck needs a little refinement to it. I think you didn't include the ladder overhang, and its positioning on 376 needs to be refined a little bit. Again, I don't think you're going to have a problem with the access. The same kind of thing. It's going to pull in and then back into back into one of the parking lots to be able to turn around.
I think we got the measurements for that truck from the fire district.
Yeah, it's just the way you have it dimensioned on your plan. It's the correct truck.
Okay.
It's just that you don't include all the dimensions. And
Okay.
And it's again, it might be a slight scaling thing. And you run your dimensions to the front wheel, or the front bumper, not the ladder overhang.
Okay.
So, and then, I think lastly, something that some board members have talked about is in terms of the two parking lots on the west side, not having them connected and having no circulation. If someone was to enter one of those lots and not have a parking spot, they'd end up having to back all the way out.
Man, that'd be unfair. Well, we looked at it.
Mark, when there's snow and things like that.
No, I know.
It would be easier if you could connect those two.
The problem is I'd lose my parking. I lose more parking. If I connect these two, I lose upwards of 6 spaces. We did look at it.
Even if you angle the spots?
If you-
And make it one lane in and one lane out? Just make it a loop.
But I still lose I'm gonna still lose spots. You angle parking, you don't save.
Yeah, you lose, you save this way, you don't save that way.
Yeah, you don't save.
So, you would lose a couple of.
I'm gonna lose my turning radius because I need to get a turning radius around it. We tried it, I wouldn't come in here if I didn't. But we laid this out, you're gonna lose 6 to 8 spots in this area here.
What if you laid them out 90 degrees different?
You mean this way?
Yeah.
I
Can
think
you
we,
do-
Center aisle.
yeah, we tried it,
And
but
make it one way, so the lane between the two parking, driving lane doesn't have to be as
I'm
wide?
trying to remember, I think we laid it out, but what happens is you get either too close to the line, or you're over it, actually. We can look at it, I'm not saying no, it's just, we did turn it this way, and we tried going through there, and, I don't remember. It didn't work out, but I can try it again. I'll show you an alternative.
I mean, even if you put a couple more like employee spots up by the refuse area or something like that?
Oh, to try
Connect them or something?
to make this work? Yeah, I mean, I can.
I'm just throwing it out there.
I mean, you already said those two lots aren't gonna be full anyway, so.
Yeah, no, as long as the board, if I lose parking, I don't,
I think as long as you're sharing with us the number of full-time staff and how many folks might be parking there that are not full-time staff, I think a lot of it's gonna be drop-off and pickup, so I don't think you need as much parking for this use as you would with possibly other use.
how about this? If I shorten these up and just put the through,
I'm fine with that, even
and
if
then,
it's just one lane.
and then we can I can add some down here as well. I can add the third.
How about you just shorten it up and put the through and don't add anything?
Okay.
Yeah, let's see what you end up with, it's an alternative, and
Yeah, I
we'll
mean,
make
I
a decision.
think we have to trust you because, I mean, you obviously don't want to build these two buildings and not have enough parking.
No, that would be bad.
That's not an area where you really want to say, why don't you walk over to, Nishwa Plaza and then come back?
No, we'll certainly look at that.
But if you're here and you're trying to back up and somebody else is trying to come in, it's just-
As long as we don't mind him having a fewer spots.
Well, we'll see what it looks like,
As long as I
and
understand the number of employees at the site and the number of parking spots you think you'd need for the drop-off and the pickup.
Yeah, I think we can do it, sure.
Yeah, okay.
Any basements?
No, everything's slab on grade. We may have to put a treatment area for this. We may go small sub-basement for tanks, but that's it.
I'll go to
Nothing
these.
full. This is slab on grade, this is slab on grade.
Water table.
Yeah, we know.
Have you gotten to signs, lighting? I know you said you had some landscaping you'd be showing us.
Yeah, we're proposing a sign out here.
For
Originally,
both buildings or just the?
no, we had one here, we're gonna move, we're gonna have just one side, the side. So we're gonna eliminate what was originally approved here, we're gonna move it over to this side.
So one side for both buildings?
Correct.
Okay.
And
Do we
then,
have the detail of that yet, or that's to be done?
I think we,
There was a detail on
I
the.
think we do, yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Can we start getting CDs?
Sure.
Yeah, we prefer that, some of us prefer that. to
You don't want the 20
would.
sheets or 20 sets
Yeah,
of
I
paper?
would.
It's much easier to,
We're killing more trees to save trees. But we can, yeah, if I can give you CDs,
Please.
or I can email them to
Mark, what are
you.
you hoping to,
You can just email.
what are you looking for tonight?
well,
I'd
the
like
planning
to
board
see-
needs to receive
Can I
a
get
certain
that
number.
public hearing?
Let's just, as far as emailing goes, I'm okay if you email, but we do need to receive the set number of copies of the plan, so some of them by CD is fine.
So you still need 20 sets?
I defer to Pam for that.
Okay.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. That means 20 copies in total, is what you're saying.
Right, some can
That
be
could be-
CDs.
Oh,
some can
okay,
be-
I'm
That could be 15
Oh,
CDs
that'd be
and
awesome.
5 paper.
That'd be huge.
Pam usually has the list of how many of us prefer CDs and how many people need the paper.
Because what I can do, honestly, we can just email, and she can email to you.
Yeah.
It saves
that's-
paper.
Where we'd like to
I
go.
prefer to have the CDs. We need to say we
Okay.
receive copies. If you send an email, that's not a
Okay.
permanent thing for us.
Okay.
And again, I don't care if you also forward them out by email, but,
You could still email.
yeah.
It just saves.
But Jason's CD should be in that planning office.
That's right, make sure it's there.
All right.
Okay, we'll do that.
I'm sorry, Mark, I just wanted to make sure that we
Right,
were
no.
clear with those.
Yeah, well, we're looking for, if we could, set a public hearing if we could, just to get any input from any of the,
Yeah, I think that's probably not a bad idea, especially the nature of the changes to the plan and the way the buildings are being laid out. I guess Michelle and Joe, anything, Brandon, anything else that we should have before a public hearing? I mean, we don't have, do we have a lighting plan yet?
We'll see lighting, landscape.
not yet. I will have it for that. I will have it on the next submission.
Lori, for this layout, though, we haven't actually gotten the SWIP. We've seen they had a SWIP under the other plan, and they're modifying, they're keeping a lot of the same components, but now that they've changed some things, we'd like to look at those details.
We will have it on the next submission.
When's the next submission?
I'm not sure, when's the next one due? It's by the end of, it'd be for February, if we could.
February 5th or February 19th?
Uh,
Last working day,
I couldn't hear you.
last working day of the month.
And he has to advertise, so it's probably the 19th.
Yeah, I think I would need the
I'm sorry, I
19th.
wasn't at public hearing. I was
Oh,
at,
I'm
when are
sorry.
we going to get the updated submission? Because we haven't even seen lighting plan or landscaping or anything like that yet. So
Yeah, we could submit it.
when is that going to be here?
Sure.
Have you done anything along the lines of a demolition plan yet, or have you started working on that for the existing building?
Actually, they want to know when they can take that down.
I thought all your materials were stored in it.
Well, I mean, right after that. Well, what do I got to file? That's my point. Do I have to file?
Demolition.
But is it a long process? Because they're actually probably they're looking to sell the structure to someone. So we were trying to figure out, but we can't take.
So you
down
see
the lot.
that being demolished before you getting a CO on the other one? That's your time frame?
It's probably going to be close because all the material will be out of there. Right now, there's windows, plywood, siding, it's in there. Anything that can go in there, the trusses are out the back of the building or behind the building.
You got.
I think we need to
try and sell
know the
old
time
building?
to answer that question.
I would say.
I think it's gonna be probably a simpler process if you're gonna do the demo prior to opening up building up business.
Yeah, I'm meeting with the contractor tomorrow, so I'll ask him what he feels the time He actually is saying he's gonna be building this quicker than they originally anticipated. It's not a very tough structure to build. So he actually mentioned March to April. So,
For completion of the,
for the other one. For substantial, maybe not C of O, but probably enough to take the other building down.
okay.
So if that's something, excuse me, that the board would be.
The same as the original house, right? The board had to approve the demolition, I believe, of that house, so it'd be the same. It's just, I don't think we have to worry quite so much about protection and some other things if you're not gonna have the other one open
No, we're worried
while
about the
you're
open
tearing that one down.
basement. The open basement on the old house was one of the concerns on the first one. No basement on the second one, so.
No basements. All slab on grade.
That's a slab, yeah.
So if we were
New
submitting
building has a
two.
basement?
The
I thought they-
old building, with the first demolition permit, there was an open basement down there.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to confuse the issue.
Okay,
So yes, I did.
all right.
Can't be, you're dead.
Michelle, lead agency, we had declared lead agency for the first building. Do we need to I'm assuming we need to recirculate the new
I would
plan,
say
that is the
we just
second
need to
building.
reaffirm that you're lead agency for the project, and then whatever, like, for instance, the plan should probably get sent to DOT, because there's gonna be changes, so whatever the new
reaffirm-
plans need to go to DOT. Everything else, as far as, you don't have to recirculate for lead agency, but I think updated plans need to be sent to anybody that has a permit approval.
So do I have a motion to reaffirm the planning board's lead agency status and to recirculate the updated plans back to the interested and involved agencies?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mark, I think you probably we want to have the SWIP, I guess, at least drafted and essentially in place before we recirculate, in case it changes anything on the plan.
Yeah, I think that would.
Okay,
Be
and then I think
preferable.
lighting, landscaping, we need something that.
Okay.
To complete those out. If you can have those in, we can put you back on for discussion on February. February 5th. I just want to make sure you have everything in place.
Okay, no,
There's some stuff we haven't seen here, but I also, we're at the 15th of January now. I think because we are already lead agency, we probably can schedule the public hearing. I just want you to come back for one more discussion with
that's
these other
fine.
things. Is that-
Absolutely.
And is that acceptable to the planning board?
I'm fine with that.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I know we've kind of already gone through a lot of this with
Nobody
the
came to
first
us.
building, so okay. So
If I
if
could
you're
just
back
add
in.
that if there's anything we could do in that timeframe to sort of vet out some of this traffic.
Sure.
It's undoubtedly going to be a question that comes up at a public hearing, so.
Well, what we'll do is, we'll get some information together for you, and we're gonna set up an appointment with the DOT. We've already called on it, so when the establishment will get you involved. All right. And hopefully we can do that before the 5th.
So if you're back in on February 5th, you should have hopefully some of these other schedules, not schedules, I'm sorry, some of these other documents submitted to us.
Yep.
Public hearing, we need 25 days for circulation.
Probably in March.
And we need to have, yeah, the first meeting in March is the 5th, or the second meeting in March, the 19th.
5th, let's go 5th.
Okay. Is that all right with the board? Do I have a motion to schedule, sorry.
Sorry.
Is that all right with you guys?
No, that's fine. It gives us time to get to the Board of Health. We can resolve some of the issues.
If it's not, Mark, we can make it the 19th, or we can wait to schedule it until after next meeting. It's up to you.
No, I'd like to, if we could keep it, you're thinking public hearing on the 5th, March 5th.
March 5th.
Yeah, no,
You'd still have time from February 5th to March 5th, but if the weather bumps you to the February 19th meeting.
Okay.
If you don't know that you're advertising, you're not gonna.
Yeah, if we can't, right, if we.
I'm just interested in public comment because I think this is it's a much larger
Substantial.
plan now, so.
I'd like to expedite
Yeah, I like that idea. Let's set the.
as quick as if I can.
Okay, so do I have a motion to schedule Taconic Innovations amended site plan for public hearing on March 5th?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
And Mark, please get everything in that we discussed on March 5th in for the February 5th
Right, it'll be in for the
discussion.
February 5th.
Okay.
Thank you.